Hi everybody, Rabbi Lewin over here. So let's have a look at understanding what is Pesach. Right. So first of all, we know that Pesach has a name in English called Passover. And I thought I'd run through a couple of the things about Pesach. What is Pesach? How we celebrate it? What's the meaning behind it? And some of the important rules related to Pesach. Okay, so first of all, Pesach is one of the biblical celebrations mentioned in the Torah. It is actually the first celebration mentioned in the Torah, and it recalls the events of the Exodus from Egypt, how God took the children of Israel, the Jewish people, out of Egypt. It is a celebration which is 7 days. It's described in the Torah. In the diaspora, anywhere outside of Israel, we have an 8th day. And the celebration begins with probably the biggest preparation of any festival in the Jewish calendar. The reason for this is that the Torah dictates that there's a prohibition to eat Hameds on Pesach. Now, what is Hameds? Hameds is any one of the 5 grains, which is wheat, barley, rye, oats, and spelt, which has been ground into flour, mixed with water, and allowed to ferment for more than 18 minutes. Anything that can become a bread or a cracker or a pasta or biscuit is known as Hameds, and the Torah tells us that it must be removed before you can actually enter the Festival of Passover. What is the philosophy of Hametz and Matzah? Well, check out the next video. So Pesach, so we have to clean the house in preparation for Pesach, and we do this by searching the house and cleaning everywhere where Hametz will have been eaten or consumed. So obviously the kitchen, the dining room, the lounge, study, maybe your bedroom, and don't forget your car. And if you've got kids, make sure that they also check their school bags, because certainly there will be chametz over there. Then on the night before Pesach, we do an activity known as Bedikat Chametz, where we check the house with a little candle and a feather and we will walk from corner to corner, making sure that all the crevices have had their chametz removed. And there's a beautiful tradition of placing 10 little pieces of bread in different parts of the house, and it becomes a nice activity between the parents and the children of finding the little pieces of chametz. That is number one, known as Bedikat Chametz. The second thing we do is known as Biur Chametz, in which we burn or destroy whatever chametz is left over. We make a declaration that any chametz that may be left in our home may be ka'afra la'ara, may be like dust on the ground. The third element is, what about the chametz I want to keep? So, for example, your expensive whiskey collection, what can be done with that? So there's a third element known as mechirat chametz, the selling of chametz. And if you click on the link below, you'll see there's a form to sign, and we will take care of your chametz, which basically means that we sell our chametz for the 8 days of Pesach to someone who's not Jewish, and then after Pesach, that chametz is repurchased or reacquired by each and every one of us. A fascinating history, which we'll make in another video. We're now ready for Pesach. The house is cleaned. We now change over from regular pots and pans and cutlery and crockery and cups to our Pesach set. We make sure that the kitchen is cleaned, and I've made a little video about that as well. Now it comes to the second element of Pesach, and that, of course, is the celebration of Pesach itself. Pesach is celebrated by the most magical and mystical evenings of the entire year. Is called Seder night. It is a time when the family gets together and we tell the story of the Exodus from Egypt. We tell the story of how our ancestors were slaved and how God took us out. We go through 15 stages, reading a book known as the Haggadah, and the root word Haggada comes from the biblical commandment of Lahagid levanecha, v'gadata levincha lemor. Teach your children or tell your children the story. And how do you tell the story? The Torah tells us very beautifully, Ki yishalcha bincha. When your child asks the question, how did this happen? What transpired? What happened on this night that we are celebrating? Ma nishtana halayla zeh. Why is this night different from any other night of the calendar year? And we tell the story. And it's interesting that the Torah in 4 different places has this mitzvah of the child asking the question. And the 4 different questions are interpreted by the author of the Haggadah as symbolic of 4 different questions asked by 4 different personalities. A wise son, a rebellious son, a simple son, and one who does not know how to ask. And each one of these children require a different answer. I therefore say like this, that the Torah is teaching me the Haggadah is teaching me a fundamental lesson in education, that every single child is different, every single child requires its own different approach to answer the questions of Pesach. And thus, in the same way as we prepare for Seder, to prepare the house for Pesach, removing the Hameds, we have to prepare for Pesach by preparing for the Seder, making sure that we have everything ready in terms of how to make this evening as engaging as possible for the children, when the children are little to when the children are adults. I've made a nice little article. Check it out on rabbilewin.net, ideas for your Pesach Seder. The Seder night itself is magnificent. It is the night of the child. And in Judaism, we all know that one of the key principles of Judaism is the ability to ask questions. A little girl stands on their chair, and they ask the question, "Ma nishtana laila?" Why is this night different from all other nights? All the nights we have bread. Why no bread? We have maror, but we're eating bitter foods. We never eat bitter foods during the year. And asking the 4 questions. This idea of challenging the parent to come up with an answer and explanation is how we greet the festival. It is a night of history. It is a night of a spiritual journey. And over the course of the night, we journey through time. We start in the present. The Haggada takes us back to the night, the fateful night of the Exodus. We walk with the Jewish people as they exit out of Egypt. B'chol dor vador says, Chayav Adam, every person, Chayav lir'ot et asmo, or lehera'ot et asmo, to appear, sense as if you left Egypt this very night. The Seder is the second oldest Jewish ritual performed after Brit Milah. And for 3,300 years, we have been sitting and telling the story of the events of the Seder. We try and recreate the Seder that took place in the days of the temple, with the Hillel sandwich, with matzah and maror. And we look forward of Lashana Haba B'Yerushalayim, a time of the ultimate redemption. So Pesach starts the redemption process. And we pray every year that this year we should see it being fulfilled. It's a night of stories. It's a night of sharing experiences. It's a night of learning from others. I always tell when did this become very clear to me was when I was sitting at a Seder with a cousin of mine. I lifted up the matzah and I looked at our children, and we were sitting at the top of the Seder table. They were sitting at the bottom. And I said to them, 40 years ago, my cousin and I were the little people at the bottom of the Seder. And we looked at the top of the table, and we saw our grandparents from Russia, from Germany, from England. And they lifted up the matzah like we're doing now. And they told the story of how this piece of matzah, which was the symbol of slavery, was transformed into the symbol of freedom. We now tell the story and hand over the story to you, our children. That is what Seder night is all about. Inspiring our children about the birth of the Jewish people, a people that has transformed and has had such an incredible impact on the world. It all happened on Seder night. It is a night filled with song. It is a night filled with talk, and a night filled with discussion. There are more mitzvot on this night than in any other night of the year. We have the mitzvah of Kiddush. We have the mitzvah of eating matzah, the mitzvah of telling the story, the mitzvah of drinking 4 cups of wine, the mitzvah of eating the maror, the mitzvah of Hallel, of celebrating the gift of God, the Exodus from Egypt, and praising God. What an incredible night, an incredible experience. And then we have the entire festival of Pesach itself. 7 days in Israel, 8 days outside of Israel. We have a chance to every meal, to taste the bread of freedom, to taste the matzah, and to reflect upon the themes about what it means to be a free people. Pesach is the start of the spring in the sphere of the spring. And if we look at Pesach, it has 4 distinct names. Chag HaPesach, the festival of Pesach, of Passover, when God passed over the houses of the Jews and smote the ancient Egyptians of Pharaoh. It is also Chag HaPesach means there's a chance to elevate oneself, to jump to different levels of spirituality. No matter how low one feels or how disconnected, Pesach night is a chance to embrace one's Judaism and one's Jewish culture and heritage. Pesach, according to one of the latest surveys, is the most celebrated Jewish experience of the year. Pesach. Chag HaMatzot. It is the festival of matzah, of course, named after the flat bread that our ancestors ate as they left Egypt. It is interesting to note that the matzah is transformed. At the very beginning of the Seder, we say, Ha-lachma anya. This is the bread of affliction, the bread of poverty that our forefathers ate in the land of Egypt. And we tell the story when it gets to Rabbi Gamliel of matzah zu she'anu ochlim, the matzah. Why do we eat the matzah? Because of how God took us out of Egypt and we left so quickly that our bread did not have time to rise, a symbol of freedom. And the entire night is the oscillation between symbols of slavery, like the maror and the charoset, and the symbols of the freedom, the matzah and the wine. Chag HaAviv, the festival of spring. Pesach is a symbol in the northern hemisphere of the start of the springtime, the start of rebirth, of birth and renewal, the birth of the Jewish people. And Zman Cherutenu, the time of our freedom, something that we should never take for granted, being free. The name Pesach can mean, on the one hand, Passover, and can also mean Pesach, my mouth speaks. A slave is silent. A slave can never talk. And if it dares to open his mouth, is punished. Pesach, a symbol of freedom, is the ability to speak. What is the greeting for Pesach? Well, we say the words Chag Kasher V'Sameach. May this festival be good, happy, and kosher. Chag Kasher V'Sameach. What Haggada should I use? Well, there are literally thousands of different editions of the Haggadah. Me, I like to buy a new Haggadah every single year. The reason for it is as follows. Tongue in cheek, the Rasha from last year, the wicked son from last year, repented. So I'm missing a wicked son. But more to the point. Every single year, if you think about it being at school, you got a new maths book, a new English book, a new setwork book, a new history book. You learn something, new facts, and new ideas every single year. Our Judaism is no different. Every single year, we should be adding another level or another layer to our knowledge and level to our understanding. And the best and the simplest way to do it is to get a new Haggadah with new insights.